my value around what we need to do to secure our border. That value has not changed. I spent 2 terms as the Attorney General of California prosecuting transnational criminal organizations, violations of American laws regarding the illegal passage of guns, drugs, and human beings across our border. My values have not changed.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the Nate Friedman Show. So, it's been 39 days since Joe Biden dropped out and endorsed Kamala Harris. Since receiving that endorsement, she hasn't done one interview until now. It was recorded and not live just in case she forgot which accent to use.
And I will tell you, when we get this done together, my friend, and when I am president, I will take on the bad actors who exploit a crisis.
To start off this absolute disaster of an interview, Dana Bash asked an important question for anyone running for president, which is, what would you do on day one? The only thing is that this question is significantly less prevalent when the person you're interviewing was just in the White House for the last 3.5 years.
If you are elected, what would you do on day one in the White House?
Well, there are a number of things. I will tell you, first and foremost, one of my highest priorities is to do what we can to support and strengthen the middle class. When I look at the aspirations, the goals, the ambitions of the American people, I think that people are ready for a new way forward.
What is she talking about with a new way forward? You're in office right now. Like, you want to strengthen the middle class? The middle class is getting destroyed by you right now. Just look at some of these numbers. Gasoline up 51%, car insurance up 54%, groceries 22%, rent up 22%. Anyway, continue.
I think sadly, in the last decade, we have had in the former president someone who is really been pushing an agenda and an environment that is about diminishing the character and the strength of who we are as Americans, really dividing our nation, and I think people are ready to turn the page on that.
Our country regrettably did turn the page on that, and we got left with someone who was so unwell they had to resign the presidency over to someone who had to drop out before Iowa because she was so disliked.
What would you do day one?
Day one, it's going to be about, one, implementing my...
Oh yeah, so Kamala just straight up didn't answer the question, so Dana had to kind of do her job and say, yeah, but what would you do on day one?
Day one, it's going to be about, one, implementing my plan for what I call an opportunity economy. I've already laid out a number of proposals in that regard, which include what we're going to do to bring down the cost of everyday goods, what we're going to do to invest in America's small businesses, what we're going to do to invest in families. For example, extending the child tax credit to $6,000 for families for the first year of their child's life to help them buy a car seat, to help them buy baby clothes, a crib. There's the work that we're going to do that is about investing in the American family around affordable housing, a big issue in our country right now.
Guys, when she wants to invest in affordable housing, know that she's referring to radical policies like giving first-time home buyers $25,000 for their down payment. That will just make the price of every home go up $25,000. She also wants to build 3 million homes that are sponsored by the state. So she could learn how to do that from Kim Jong-un, considering that they are great allies after all.
So the United States shares a very important relationship, which is an alliance with the Republic of North Korea. So there are a number of things on day one.
What about you?
Well, I'm excited about this agenda, too. As I said, the idea of inspiring America to what can be. And I think many of these things that the vice president's proposing are things that we share in values. And the child tax credit is one we know that reduces childhood poverty by 1/3. We did it in Minnesota. To have a federal partner in this, unbelievable, I think, in the impact that we can make.
Tim Walz will become increasingly useless as this interview goes on. Just know that right there, that was his peak.
You talked about, you call it the opportunity economy. You are well aware that right now many Americans are struggling. There's a crisis of affordability. One of your campaign themes is we're not going back. But I wonder what you say to voters who do want to go back when it comes to the economy specifically, because their groceries were less expensive, housing was more affordable when Donald Trump was president.
I had to check my pulse after that question because I thought I literally died because CNN actually asked a question to a Democrat politician. Let's just see how Kamala dodges it, though.
Well, let's start with the fact that when Joe Biden and I came in office, during the height of a pandemic, we saw over 10 million jobs were lost. People, I mean, literally, we were all tracking the numbers. Hundreds of people a day were dying because of COVID. The economy had crashed. In large part, all of that because of mismanagement by Donald Trump of that crisis. When we came in, our highest priority was to do what we could to rescue America. And today, we know that we have inflation at under 3%. A lot of our policies have led to the reality that America recovered faster than any wealthy nation around the world.
Kamala, why are you flexing your inflation rates? That's one of your weakest points for anyone who has internet access. You just Google Kamala inflation versus Trump inflation and you get this. Average inflation rate under Trump, 1.9%. Average inflation rate under Joe Biden and Kamala Harris, 5.7%. I would suggest never bringing up inflation if you want to win this election. Actually, you know what? Talk about it.
But you are right. Prices, in particular for groceries, are still too high. The American people know it, I know it, which is why my agenda includes what we need to do to bring down the price of groceries. For example, dealing with an issue like price gouging.
All I heard was that's why I'm implementing a system called communism. Grocery stores are operating on razor-thin profit margins right now because our economy is inside a dumpster, which is inside of another dumpster. I assure you, forcing Kroger to reduce the price of eggs is not going to fix the economy.
What we need to do to extend the child tax credit to help young families.
You know what? Even better. If you want to afford eggs, just have another kid.
She's right. I had my second kid just for the vacation.
You have been vice president for 3.5 years.
Yeah.
The steps that you're talking about now, why haven't you done them already?
Kamala's like, oh, so you really are going to interview me.
Well, first of all, we had to recover as an economy, and we have done that. I'm very proud of the work that we have done that has brought inflation down to less than 3%. The work that we have done to cap the cost of insulin at $35 a month for seniors.
Wrong. Trump did that. This is yet another policy that was copied by you. This is nothing original, and all the groundwork was laid by your predecessor.
Will cap cost at just $35 a month per type of insulin, and some plans may offer it free. So for everybody who's getting ripped off and paying tremendous prices, senior citizens, is a tremendous saving.
It is President Biden and I that took on Big Pharma and finally capped the cost of insulin for our seniors at $35 a month. But Donald Trump and his running mate intend to get rid of our $35 cap on insulin.
Here you're about to see CNN doing what journalists do, which again had me in shock. This is tremendously good news for not just Republicans, but for the country. If the media becomes honest again, that would truly be wonderful. Take a look.
I want to get some clarity on where you stand on some key policy issues. Energy is a big one. When you were in Congress, you supported the Green New Deal. And in 2019, you said, quote, "There is no question I'm in favor of banning fracking." Fracking, as you know, is a pretty big issue, particularly in your must-win state of Pennsylvania.
Sure.
Do you still want to ban fracking?
No, and I made that clear on the debate stage in 2020, that I would not ban fracking. As vice president, I did not ban fracking. As president, I will not ban fracking.
In 2019, I believe, at a town hall, you said you were asked, would you commit to implementing a federal ban on fracking on your first day in office? And you said, there's no question I'm in favor of banning fracking. So yes. So it changed in that campaign.
Again, you see her being like, oh man, I should not have done this interview.
In 2020, I made very clear where I stand. We are in 2024, and I've not changed that position, nor will I going forward. I kept my word, and I will keep my word.
Kamala Harris, in theory, had 40 days to prepare for this interview, and that's why this is my favorite part, because you know eventually someone has to ask her about immigration. Take a look.
During the Biden-Harris administration, there were record numbers of illegal border crossings. Why did the Biden-Harris administration wait 3.5 years to implement sweeping asylum restrictions?
Well, first of all, the root causes work that I did as vice president, that I was asked to do by the president, has actually resulted in a number of benefits, including historic investments by American businesses in that region. The number of immigrants coming from that region has actually reduced since we began that work. But I will say,
Oh my God. I'm sorry. Immigrants from that region has actually reduced. I hope I don't need to get my ears checked, because here is a graph of illegal immigration during Trump's term versus Kamala as VP. Please do not let this woman fool you that migration is in any way under control in the slightest. Horrible migrant crime is taking place right now, like in Aurora, Colorado, where they took over an apartment complex. This is a crisis, and statements like this are just blatant lies.
Joe Biden and I and our administration worked with members of the United States Congress on an immigration issue that is very significant to the American people and to our security, which is the border. And through bipartisan work, including some of the most conservative members of the United States Congress, a bill was crafted, which we supported, which I support. And Donald Trump got word of this bill that would have contributed to securing our border, and because he believes that it would not have helped him politically, he told his folks in Congress, don't put it forward. He killed the bill. A border security bill that would have put 1,500 more agents on the border. And let me tell you something, the Border Patrol endorsed the bill. And I'm sure in large part because they knew they were working around the clock, and 1,500 more agents would help them. That bill would have allowed us to increase seizures of fentanyl. Ask any community in America that has been devastated by fentanyl what passing that bill would have done to address their concern and a pain that they've experienced.
So you would push that legislation again. I just want to
Not
ask
only
about...
push it, I will make sure that it comes to my desk and I would sign it.
Oh, baby, I got a lot to say about that. First of all, the bill was brought up 3.5 years into your term, so what on earth were you doing that entire time? Secondly, that bill was filled with non-border related issues, including $60 billion to support Ukraine in its fight against Russia. That's roughly 3 times more than what the border security would receive, and $10 million in humanitarian assistance to civilians in Gaza and the West Bank, Ukraine, and other populations caught in conflict zones across the globe. Thirdly, I want to congratulate you for even attempting to blame Trump for the border. That could not have been easy. He had the toughest border in modern American history, but you managed to blame him anyway. So for that, I say that's impressive. Go on.
Just one other question about something that you said in 2019 when you first ran. There was a debate. You raised your hand when asked whether or not the border should be decriminalized. Do you still believe that?
I believe there should be consequence. We have laws that have to be followed and enforced that address and deal with people who cross our border illegally, and there should be consequence. And let's be clear, in this race, I'm the only person who has prosecuted transnational criminal organizations who traffic in guns, drugs, and human beings. I'm the only person in this race who actually served a border state as Attorney General to enforce our laws, and I would enforce our laws as president going forward. I recognize the problem.
You absolutely and fundamentally do not recognize the problem. You call the problem not a problem by saying, quote, an undocumented immigrant is not a criminal.
Generally speaking, how should voters look at some of the changes that you've made, that you've explained some of here, in your policy? Is it because you have more experience now and you've learned more about the information? Is it because you were running for president in a Democratic primary? And should they feel comfortable and confident that what you're saying now is going to be your policy moving forward?
Dana, why are you giving her a multiple choice question? Ask the question and wait for an answer. The American people are trying to figure out if Joe Biden gave her whatever he has. We can't afford for you to give her 3 ways out of a question.
Dana, I think the most important and most significant aspect of my policy perspective and decisions is my values have not changed. You mentioned the Green New Deal. I have always believed, and I have worked on it, that the climate crisis is real, that it is an urgent matter to which we should apply metrics that include holding ourselves to deadlines around time.
Kamala holds herself to deadlines around time. What the fuck else would a deadline be around? The definition of a deadline is the latest time or date by which something should be completed. Kamala probably gave that answer after 30 minutes of word salad, and they just had to get the interview done before her next rally.
My value around what we need to do to secure our border, that value has not changed. I spent 2 terms as the Attorney General of California prosecuting transnational criminal organizations, violations of American laws regarding the illegal passage of guns, drugs, and human beings across our border. My values have not changed.
Okay, the Trump campaign will now play any clip of Kamala Harris saying something absolutely ridiculous, which happens every day, and just follow it up with, "My values haven't changed." Not deporting criminals who assault police officers on camera? Don't worry, her values haven't changed. With Kamala Harris as the border czar, the US government spent $150 billion on the migrant crisis, but rest assured, her values haven't changed.
I want to ask you about your opponent, Donald Trump.
Okay.
I was a little bit surprised. People might be surprised to hear that you have never interacted with him, met him face to face. That's going to change soon. But what I want to ask you about is what he said last month. He suggested that you happened to turn black recently for political purposes, questioning a core part of your identity.
Yeah.
Any?
Same old tired playbook. Next question, please.
That's it?
That's it.
Okay.
CNN really dialed back the journalism here. Was that even a question? I mean, you've got the Democratic nominee for president in front of you, and you say that. I guess I got my hopes up too quickly about CNN.
Governor Walz, the country is just starting to get to know you.
Walz is like, yes, I'm still here. I like how Dana is talking to him like he's 5 years old, too, although I don't blame her because he's got the integrity of a 5-year-old.
I want to ask you a question about how you've described your service in the National Guard. You said that you carried weapons in war, but you have never deployed actually in a war zone. A campaign official said that you misspoke. Did you?
Well, first of all, I'm incredibly proud. I've done 24 years of wearing the uniform of this country. Equally proud of my service in a public school classroom, whether it's Congress or the governor.
Look at Kamala watching him dodge this question like, good job, Tim, just like we rehearsed. This is honestly so pathetic. Anyway, let's continue.
My record speaks for itself, but I think people are coming to get to know me. I speak like they do. I speak candidly. I wear my emotions on my sleeves, and I speak especially passionately about our children being shot in schools and around guns. So I think people know me. They know who I am. They know where my heart is. And again, my record has been out there for over 40 years to speak for itself.
And the idea that you said that you were in war.
Yeah.
Did you misspeak as the campaign has said?
Yeah, I said we were talking about, in this case, this was after a school shooting, the ideas of carrying these weapons of war. And my wife, the English teacher, told me my grammar is not always correct. But again,
Your grammar is not always correct. Governor Walz, that was a lot more than a slip-up of grammar. Here's the original clip, guys.
And we can make sure that those weapons of war that I carried in war is the only place where those weapons are at.
Tim Walz is guilty of stolen valor.
if it's not this, it's an attack on my children for showing love for me, or it's an attack on my dog. I'm not going to do that. And the one thing I'll never do is I'll never demean another member's service in any way. I never have, and I never will.
I changed my mind, actually. This upcoming clip is my favorite because it has to do with Biden, and I'm gonna miss that guy. He was the worst president of all time, but you gotta admit he made us laugh. Here's Kamala about Joe Biden's mental acuity.
Vice President Harris, you were a very staunch defender of President Biden's capacity to serve another 4 years. Right after the debate, you insisted that President Biden is extraordinarily strong. Given where we are now, do you have any regrets about what you told the American people?
No, not at all. Not at all. I have served with President Biden for almost 4 years now, and I'll tell you, it's one of the greatest honors of my career, truly. He cares so deeply about the American people. He is so smart and loyal to the American people. And I have spent hours upon hours with him, be it in the Oval Office or the Situation Room. He has the intelligence, the commitment, and the judgment and disposition that I think the American people rightly deserve in their president.
America is a nation that can be defined in a single word: I was in the the foothills of the Himalayas with Xi Jinping.
The American people deserve, which is a new way forward, and turn the page.
Again, a new way forward from the vice president of the current administration is a testament to how little Kamala Harris thinks of you. Lastly, we have new information about the call that Biden gave to Kamala to tell her he was dropping out. Keep in mind, Biden dropped out by putting out a tweet, but he was well enough to call Kamala Harris. Let me know if this sounds like the most staged story you've ever heard.
What was that like? And did he offer to endorse you right away, or did you ask for it?
It was a Sunday, so here, I'll give you a little too much information.
Go for it. There's no such thing, Madam Vice President.
My family was staying with us, and including my baby nieces, and we had just had pancakes and, Auntie, can I have more bacon? Yes, I'll make you more bacon. And then we were sitting down to do a puzzle. And the phone rang, and it was Joe Biden. And he told me what he had decided to do. And I asked him, "Are you sure?" And he said yes. And that's how I learned about it.
And what about the endorsement? Did you ask for it?
And he was very clear that he was going to support me.
So when he called to tell you, he said, "I'm pulling out of the race and I'm going to support you."
Well, my first thought was not about me, to be honest with you. My first thought was about him.
And with that steaming pile of BS that Kamala Harris's first thought was about Biden, I leave you with one thing, which is that CNN will not release the full transcript of that interview. Surprise, surprise. Anyway, this was the Nate Friedman Show. If you want to see me question migrants on the streets of New York City, just click this video and I'll see you there.